Just so everyone is aware, the meeting is going to be videotaped tonight. And then we also have two members of the press here from Warren Hall and from PBS. So if you don't want to be photographed or videotaped, you might want to move the chair to the back of the room. Otherwise, just want to let everybody know that ahead of time. Okay, let's start the meeting. First item of interest is the approval of minutes from the April 18th meeting. So hopefully everybody has a chance to review them. Any questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
Under the strategic plan, it says all agreed. Can we clarify who all is, and maybe if it's the committee, maybe put the committee agreed? Because I don't want it to appear that we all agreed when we didn't have a vote on something.
I know the committee did, but I'm not sure. You know if we voted.
We did not.
No. So we'll change that to committee agreed.
The committee agreed, please? Thank you.
Or maybe, better yet, committee suggested. Okay, anybody else? Okay, I need a motion. Oh, no, we're gonna do that all together. So, okay. The second item of interest is the treasurer's report, which you all should have received today.
I have a question. I did not get April's treasury report because we missed May. So we did not have an April's treasury report, so there's nothing to approve.
That is correct.
And, right, you're only approving May's treasury report.
Correct.
Will we be getting an April's treasury report?
I haven't planned on it.
Okay.
Um, I didn't go and get the documents for it, and, you know, these are incremental. Month by month, we track our expenses and income against the budget. And the trends are always marked, you know, percentage of, you know, the year budget and so on. And there are no surprises in the May report. All the information that goes into these is in these spreadsheets that the library supplies us with.
I'm not giving the details. I'm just giving the summary. I don't have a detailed bills list or statement of accounts.
She's correct,
So all I get are the sources, and I get the summary. I don't see the details, which is problematic. And also, you have on there legal fees that are a quarterly expense. Is that under professional fees?
Yes.
So if they're quarterly, we have bills every month. So how are they quarterly if we're,
Fuel bills quarterly.
if he bills it quarterly, then why are we showing expenses every month?
Every month, I count the accumulated everything through that month. Okay, let's say hypothetically, in February, we had a snow plowing bill. And it didn't snow in March. So the same dollar amount would be carried forward to March, even though during month of March it was zero. Because all these are done as year to date. I mean, does that help you?
No.
I mean, okay, the legal bills come every quarter, which means, oh, we didn't spend any money on lawyers this month. Well, yeah, we did. You're gonna pay for it next month or the month after.
Oh, well, I understand the quarterly reporting, but if we get when is the quarter? In March, June, September, and December?
So when do you send out your bills?
sorry.
When do you submit your bills? What month?
Once a month. At the beginning of the year, I wasn't sending once a month, but now it's monthly.
Oh, you switched to monthly?
Yeah, it'll be monthly now.
All right. Why wasn't I informed?
Can I ask you a question about voting, Joe, Mr. Attorney?
Yeah, sure, of course.
If somebody wants to abstain from a vote, is there forms that need to be filled out?
I don't know of any forms that need to be filled out for the board. We haven't had anyone abstain while I've been on as a solicitor.
You mean a conflict of interest like that?
No,
But you certainly can abstain.
okay, but I don't have to fill out a report as to knowing.
I think we just make a record of it for the minutes.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay. Lastly, the library director's report. Do you have any questions? And then that, is there anything you want to add to that?
There is nothing I want to add, but I'd be happy to answer questions.
Okay. So I need a motion to approve the consent agenda, which is the minutes, treasurer's report, and library.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm just gonna abstain from that, since I'm new to the board and I didn't have a chance to review any of that.
No. And as an I'm abstaining.
Is that Tom? Leonard and.
I'm fine voting in favor.
I'm abstaining.
Okay, next is community resident comments. And again, I'll just reiterate, if you want to get up and, it's a 3-minute time limit. And if you want to get up and, you know, you have to get up and just sit in your seat. But if you have something you want to say, you got to have it signed in and yes. So,
I will,
yeah, the cat's going to go with the rules.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to go with speech debate rules where we have a 3-minute countdown. So at 1 minute, I'll give you a 1, 30 seconds left, I'll give you a half, and then a fist at time's up. Please wrap up your statements. That's just so we don't interrupt anybody when you're trying to speak. So if you're okay with that, again, it's 1 minute left, 30 seconds left, fist at time. Please wrap up your statements as fast as possible. Okay? Can everybody see me?
Yes.
So,
Okay, I have the list. Melissa Sutyak.
Hi. Good evening. I'd like to introduce myself to our new board members, as I've had the pleasure of meeting many of you or seeing you in the library at any of my programs or other events here at the library. My name is Melissa Sutyak. I am the librarian for youth programming. I create, plan, and run all the youth and family programs at our library. Programs that are free of charge to our families, that offer safe and nurturing space for children, youth, and their caregivers. Programs that promote learning, literacy, STEM, community togetherness, fun, and so much more. Go on and on. As you're aware, over the past year plus, our library has been pulled into a political dispute over Lower Saucon Township, leaving Kellertown area library, deciding they want to join up with us. During the last year plus, a lot of energy, thought, and legal work has been done by our director and those board members to see if this request is at all feasible and to learn what it would take for this to work so our library function and serve our current members as well as possibly add another 11,000 new ones. You need to know that so much time has been placed on this issue that has taken a toll on our library and our staff. We are currently understaffed, I want to say it, underpaid, and overwhelmed as it is. I've witnessed our director and all of us staff members work extra hours, come in on days off, and step up to take on extra work outside our job description to keep this library opening and functioning for our community. We do this because we love this library. We love our members, and we love this community. And we know that having an open and high-functioning library is not a luxury, but a necessity for our community. Please know that we are so much more than books, which of course are important for our literate and free society. We are free Wi-Fi for those who can't afford it. We are a warm place in the winter, a cool place in the summer for those who need it. We are free programs and events for families and youth. We are a place for special needs members and their caregivers. We are a place for families to bring their kids to play when they need to get out of the house. We are a space for tutors, AR prep for tax for senior citizens, yoga classes, books, discussion groups, and I could go on and on and on. Bottom line, we are an important and necessary community center that is here to serve our members. It is vital that we have a board of directors that truly cares about advocates for what is best for this library and the community it serves. I have seen this in my director and in many past and some current board members. My hope is that you are on this board because you too are a member of this community who wants to be an advocate for our library. That you want to make sure the library is functioning and running at the highest level to serve the community it was created by and for. I would hope your placement on this board is because you care about and value this library as much as I do. That you are committed to serving the community it was created for and not for any misguided or misinformed political or personal reasons. Thank you for your time and service to the library and our community. Yeah, I'm a student as well. Okay.
Karen Clutinotti.
Do I need the microphone if I speak like this? Okay. All right. My name is Karen Clutinotti. I've been a resident of Upper Saucon Township for over 40 years, and I've been on staff at Southern Lehigh Public Library for 22 years. I am grateful for the staff and library leadership of our director, Lynette Sager. She has led the staff and the library with kindness, grace, and integrity. She is admired and respected by all her staff, past and current, as well as our patrons. I observed and experienced the board's leadership during my years on staff. I am so appreciative of the past board members who have put the library first and are library-minded. The past 18 months of this chaos with Lower Saucon Township has been the lowest in morale and the most stressful for all our staff during my tenure. I have deep concerns about the direction that I see the current board going and the possibility to agree to accept Lower Saucon Township into the Southern Lehigh Public Library. There will not be enough staff or space to accommodate the extra patrons. We do an awesome job with library programming and library assistance. There's no possible way that we will be able to continue with the extra people that will be coming into the library. My concern is that adequate resources and funding will not exist to secure the future of this library. In addition, the past track record of Lower Saucon Township creates a question of stability as well. I ask the board to vote no in accepting Lower Saucon Township into our library.
Ashley Murphy.
Hello, I'm Ashley Murphy, and I have been a resident for 8 years. I have been a member of the book club. I've enjoyed the wonderful youth programming, and I'm a frequent patron. I've observed the Lower Saucon Township drama, and I can state that the Lower Saucon Township residents want to join Hellertown Area Library. They want a library in their area. They don't want to have to drive here. If you're listening, the residents of Upper Saucon Township are very concerned about the square footage requirement and the staffing requirements. And we're concerned that Lower Saucon Township's contribution is not going to cover all those requirements for 10 years. I also have concerns about some of the new members. Mr. Beal is not a resident of Upper Saucon Township. Mr. Beal is also Mr. Leonard's supervisor. That is not independent. In fact, that encroaches on cronyism. Dr. Wayock at a school board meeting questioned if anyone even uses libraries anymore. And Mrs. Deeple's husband publicly signed a pledge that is anti-diversity, anti-trans, and he has been espousing book bans. There are 11,000 people in Lower Saucon Township. A lot of people in this community have a feeling that this board has been packed in order to push this Lower Saucon Township proposal through. And if that occurs, this board is not listening to the residents, And Lower Saucon Township is not listening to their residents either. Leading to a much bigger question about democracy. Are you guys serving the people who you are supposed to serve? Thank you.
Priscilla De Leon.
Hello, good evening. My name is Priscilla De Leon. I've been a councilwoman in Lower Saucon for 36 years. I received a copy of the May 9th, 2023 letter from Upper Saucon to Southern Lehigh Public Library. Since I'm not on the LST Library Committee, I asked for an update at the May 17, 2023 council meeting. Watch the YouTube channel and watch how my words were twisted by the council president to avoid answering my questions and sharing any public information on the library. The last time the library was on the Lower Saucon agenda was at a special meeting on April 4th. I voted no to the motion for a 10-year period. I'm not going to go over the details. Everybody knows what the details are about the payments and the penalty and all that. All the deadlines have passed, and here we are. Prior to Lower Saucon going to the Hellertown Library in 2012, a task force was formed, issuing a report dated August 15, 2012. And as a result, a committee was formed issuing a library consolidation report on August 15, 2013. All this was public information. None of this is happening here. We all had a role in it. We all had meeting after meeting after meeting to participate. Boards will change and board relationships will change. I urge you to do your due diligence. We have two great libraries. There should be a way to work this out, be transparent. I hope the newly appointed members have done their homework. Where is the cost analysis and other studies? Can you accommodate our residents? Will you have the required number of staffing? Would you be able to accommodate all assignments given to our Saucon Valley students? Will you need to purchase multiple copies of text? Will you have to hire more staff and offer more programs? Who will pay for all these increases? You have a fine library here at Southern Lehigh Public Library, and your board and staff are very welcoming. But I, along with most Lower Saucon residents, have spoken with, want to join the Hellertown Library and have it fully funded by Lower Saucon. I also would like both libraries to work together in the future. There's lots of questions, lots of answers, not a lot of answers. Be careful who you play with. The writing is all on the wall for you to see, including this board. I sat here and I watched a question about the ethics, your conflict of interest was brought up. According to the Ethics Commission, you really have to abstain if there's a financial interest, and there's forms that have to be filled out. So I really would like you to really research into who can really state whether there's a conflict of interest or not. And if you abstain from one thing tonight on the agenda because you weren't prepared, then you shouldn't be voting on anything.
Dan Braden.
I'm a resident of Lower Saucon Township, on Bingen Road for 20-some years, and so I have been following the local goings-on over there, and they're quite concerning to me and just about everyone else I know. And somehow you folks have all gotten dragged into this. So I'm not going to lecture you on anything, I'm just going to ask some questions that I hope you will take into account, you and everyone else who's listening here and in the great beyond. Okay, if it's too good to be true, why is Lower Saucon Township offering you all this money? As attractive as that sounds, do you really know what's behind this? In fact, have you ever heard of such a thing happening? Has the Upper Saucon Township ever offered anyone $250,000 just out of the goodness of their hearts? Okay, if you think this passes any smell test, go see a doctor, or maybe it's the Canadian smoke. Okay, reportedly, Upper Saucon Township thinks the $250,000 should generate $10,000 a year in interest. Is this to be restricted money? If so, what are the restrictions? This is already highly contentious. Why lock in a 10-year agreement? Why is Lower Saucon Township demanding that? And why is Upper Saucon Township Council suddenly hell-bent on ramming this thing through? I looked at your website. You had a proposed change to your bylaws, which did not get voted in. This is all very recent. That's like not normal, so, you know, smell test, right? A lot of lawsuits have been coming out of the Lower Saucon Township Council of late. And the landfill expansion got some Lower Saucon Township residents riled up enough to litigate. They may be looking for a new cause. Do you have a line item for legal fees? I guess you do. We had a question about this. Okay? I mean, maybe that's what some of this $250,000 might be needed for. So bottom line, I just remind you of the old adage, be careful who you get into bed with, you might catch something.
Mary Dawson.
My name's Mary Dawson. I'm a resident of Lower Saucon. As a retired librarian, avid library user, and resident of Lower Saucon Township, I am ashamed, disheartened, and embarrassed at the debacle that our Township Council has put our residents and your library board through. I appreciate your board's hard work in sorting through this mess. I'm sure you had other things you could have been doing. And I can only request that you do not accept any proposal from our Township Council. There are many reasons to reject their proposal. Number one, Lower Saucon's residents strongly oppose it and wish to have their home library remain the Hellertown Area Library. Number two, which I'll call Hal. Hal is within walking distance of our school campus and is centrally located for all our residents, while your library is quite a distance away from our eastern part of our township. In addition, your library is in a different county and a different school district. Number three, this proposal is not financially feasible for your library. Although it seems like a lot of money when you factor in adding 11,000 residents of Lower Saucon and no allowance is made for inflation, it does not make sense. Your library would have to add more staff, possibly expand their building, which would add costs. It is my understanding that your programs already have waiting lists. Please look carefully at the financial analysis. Number four, it is not clear whether the Office of Commonwealth Libraries would accept this proposal or how long it would take before Lower Saucon residents have library service. When we were members of HAL, we could all use the Southern Library, Southern Lehigh Library, or the Bethlehem Area Public Library, or any other library in the state using the PA Access Program, which we no longer have now because of our Township Council. Number five, there is an election this year, and our council members may very well change. Southern Lehigh Library may then be stuck working with members who oppose this deal. Number six, our council has shown themselves in the last few years, with the exception of Priscilla, to be arrogant, stubborn, and not at all responsive to the wishes of the community they supposedly serve. Are these the kind of people you want to work with? In addition, they have been more than willing to use litigation to get their own way, which is my taxpayer money, I have to say. Thank you for listening to my concerns. I sincerely hope that Lower Saucon can go back to being members of HAL, and both libraries can continue serving the communities that support them.
Robin Socha. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that.
That's good enough. Robin Socha, I live out in Wassergas. I just have a couple comments. As of today, from May 1st, there have been 145 new HAL members, which means that they fully know that they're in danger of losing the library come December. They still chose to get cards, and that's since May 1st. 890 card holders since January. The elections are coming up, and hopefully those people will be out with their ridiculous decisions, but we're going to be stuck with what they've done, and that's not fair to us. Also, I want to thank Joe Allen for putting together a great fundraiser for the library. 67 Lower Saucon residents, we're volunteers, we made some money, and we want to keep our library.
Renee Hillman.
I'll be brief because some of the comments were already said. My name is Renee Hillman. I'm a resident of Lower Saucon Township. I live approximately 1.5 miles from the Hellertown area library. According to Waze, coming here tonight was 7.5 miles, 15 minutes as opposed to 3 minutes. But it's not about my time, it's about my community. It's about your community as well. And the people at Lower Saucon Township Council refuse to answer questions. I'm not going to ask you questions because I don't expect you to know the answers to their questions. But I want to know rhetorically, what is this really about? And make you think about that, please. So I'm going to ask that you not accept the proposal tonight that's on the table, and please continue to stay neutral. We do want to see our libraries work together, but we want to be members of the Hellertown Area Library. Thank you.
Lynn Hill. That's me. Hi, I'm Lynn Hill, a resident of Lower Saucon Township, and I oppose the agreement between Lower Saucon and this library. I, like all my other fellow residents of Lower Saucon Township, are extremely frustrated with our council's determination to defund Hellertown Library on a permanent basis. And despite all of us, reiterating time and again that we want them to fund our community library, the one that's in our neighborhood, in our school district, in our county, and it's relatively in the center of our township. It's centrally located. Changing the board of directors of this library doesn't change any of the facts of this situation. This proposal that I'm embarrassed to say Lower Saucon Township has offered is not a great arrangement for this library, and it puts both libraries in a risk of financial hardship. And this is all because, from what I hear, there's this vendetta against Hellertown, that some of the people on our council, and I'm not talking about Priscilla, but others, seem to have it out for Hellertown, and they've done numerous things to try to hurt Hellertown, and this is just one of those things. And it's a shame that adults have this desire to mess up libraries so much, and the kids are the ones that are going to be hurt by this. The first obligation of any public official is to behave in an ethical manner. And I apologize that Lower Saucon Township's council has not done that. They've set a poor example. And I hope that you all do what's in the best interest of both communities and not accept the proposal. The other thing I have to say is there's certain requirements that the state has. When you increase the number of patrons, you have to increase staff, collection, etc. And these libraries are heavily regulated that way. Violations of the Office of Commonwealth Libraries rules may even result in a loss of the funding from the state, which would definitely hurt you even more. So, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, could I just get a clarification?
I was going to say something.
We've heard tonight from the residents that are here that there's an active proposal from Lower Saucon Township before us. I'm not aware of a proposal.
No, that's not my understanding, because the last proposal was rescinded, it had a deadline date on it.
So the most recent proposal from Lower Saucon, it had a deadline, and that deadline has now passed. So there really is no proposal before us tonight.
That's correct.
So just to make sure everyone in the audience understands that, there is no proposal tonight.
No offer.
There will be. Of course there will be.
All right, I just wanted to make sure I understood things properly, and I thought it might be helpful for the people in the audience to understand that there is no proposal before us.
Laura Ray.
Hi, my name is Laura Ray. I'm from Lower Saucon Township. I'm running for council this year for quite a number of reasons. This topic is one of the big ones. I found it hard to come up with specific comments before here, so I've just been scribbling notes because I didn't know whether there was a proposal or not, because they wouldn't mention it at a council meeting if there was. They kind of gave our solicitor free rein to do whatever he wants, and we don't have to know about it. So whatever the proposal was, might be, will be, could be, I would not support it in any way. I'm not looking for any long-term agreement between Lower Saucon Township and Southern Lehigh Library. Our residents want to support our own community library. It's very concerning to see the manipulation of the board to obtain desired votes, kind of getting that all ready for whatever is to come. If you ignore the analysis and the concerns that have been raised, it's not in the best interest for any of the residents or your patrons in either community, either library. I thought the recent appointments on this board were extremely questionable. And although we were told at the Upper Saucon meeting that it was legal, they're allowed to do that, I'll say again, it certainly appears highly unethical to me. So that's my comment.
Kathy Pitchell McGovern. Hi. I'm just going to piggyback with everybody else that said, I've been a Lower Saucon Township resident for 60 years. Graduated from Saucon Valley, as did my father, as did my children. It took me 27 minutes to get here because I live over by, on the other side of Lower Saucon, down by the SPCA. So when my kids were little, you went to the library, you picked up your kindergartner, those kind of things, and I'm sure moms still do it. And you can't do it if you're here. If you remember, maybe you don't, the original Hellertown Library was now, or what then was Adams Plumbing next to Euro Electric. You guys remember? So, you know, we went from that to the library, which was huge. And like all my colleagues, this is a terrible proposal. But the thing that I think upset me more than anything else, other than the fact that our own township council does not answer the questions of other council members or the community, was when I was in the Upper Saucon Township Council, and they made a decision then to take, I believe her name is Candy, off the board, and Lower Milford and Coopersburg, just like that, didn't have a vote. They don't have the municipality, they don't have the people to make the revenue they were supposed to make. That was all been here long before last month, and add 2 Upper Saucon council members. It just doesn't make any sense of why that's okay and how it just passed through Upper Saucon. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think Joe's the one that read the contract that said a $75,000 penalty for 10 years? Why is that okay? And why are we continuing to meet about this? I just don't understand it. It's crazy. Thank you very much. Donna Solo?
Yes. Hi, I'm a resident of Upper Saucon Township. Love the library. Libraries are the heart and the main artery of all of our small communities. And I just wanted to express my opposition to this whole deal. It just doesn't seem to make sense to me. I'll be interested then to get and hear about the old business, because I see special motion resolution, LST partnership discussion. So that means there's something going on here, and that's why we're all here. So unless I'm getting it all wrong. Anyway, this proposal, like you've all said, it just doesn't make any sense.
Eileen Courtney?
I'm going to pass. I couldn't do any better than Melissa and Karen.
David Willard?
Yeah, I'll pass all my comments for these days.
Andrea, you didn't choose anything?
That's correct.
Okay. Ann Schubert?
Well, on the off chance that I might be a little repetitive, I'm Ann Schubert, resident of Upper Saucon since 1983, with 2 children having gone through the Southern Lehigh schools K through 12, and having patronized the Southern Lehigh Public Library since it was on Beverly Hills Road in walking distance of our home. Now it's bigger and better. It does even more, as was revealed in the latest library newsletter, impressively jam-packed with services, 2 book clubs, multiple kid activities, but you've heard about all that tonight. Also, just recently, the library helped me get a book from another library. The staff helped me, advise me about ebooks, assisted my selection of an audio CD. I even got plants for my garden from the Friends of the Library sale. All an incredible service, all-service library we've got. That brings me to the library board. Thank you for letting me address the board. I have done so in the past and have always appreciated that you're not only listening to, but actually hearing and considering ideas presented by community members. I value your openness, transparency, in today's terms, in not only acknowledging our remarks, but demonstrating that you've actually heard us. I have seen you discuss your ideas and community questions and suggestions in real time, in front of the audience. You've shown that you've done your homework and you've arrived at conclusions and consensus for the best possible outcome. In front of the audience, you have asked advice from the experts in the room. Experts in running a library, Lynette Sager. In day-to-day library functioning, Kathy Parsons. In state library policy, Mark Sullivan. In law, Attorney Joe Leeson. In management and board authority, Bruce Eames. In monetary matters, Candy Cruz. In law, Attorney Joe Leeson. I said you, what, you get twice. In library board history and school board relations, John Schubert. In volunteer organization and community representation, Kat Moyer. You excel in believing in this library and its value to our community. I have always trusted this board. But in the last year, your work for the library has been continuously disrupted by the Lower Saucon Township Supervisor's proposals, demands, and uncooperative non-responsiveness. Now I am dismayed, appalled by the actions of our own Upper Saucon Township Supervisors Board, who made a sham of listening to residents and have proceeded with an obviously predetermined plan to take over the Southern Lehigh Public Library Board, placing their own employees on the library board to achieve their agenda. There is no place for the behind-the-scenes maneuvering, petty division, or political divisiveness on the library board. My faltering hope is that the board going forward can continue its customary public discussions and responsiveness and its commitment to long-term viability and community service. Thank you.
Anne Marie Crown?
Hello, I'm Anne Marie Crown. I am a resident of Lower Saucon Township. I have been there for 19 years, living in the Wassergasse area of the township. And I would state what so many people in Lower Saucon Township state, that they hope what had been proposed would never happen. I was well aware that the proposal was just dismissed. I was relieved when I heard that. But I don't believe that it's the end of it. I think you will hear about it more. When the first woman spoke tonight, she practically brought tears to my eyes, because she spoke about what a library really is to a community. And someone else very eloquently said that the library is the heart of a community. I personally believe the library is the soul of a community. I have been going to libraries since I was 5 years old, and I'll go until I can't go there anymore. But the library that I will go to is the Hellertown Library. And when this proposal first came up and they had that idea about We can pay for a library card, and they'll pay half of it back to us. I went right down and got my Hellertown card. I sent it right into the township to get the reimbursement, and as soon as I had the reimbursement in my hand, I went down to the library and gave it to them. It is a small gesture, but that library is a soul in our community. It's by the school, it's by the pool, it's by the park. You can walk to the township, you can walk to the main street in Hellertown in no time. If it gets defunded by this activity and falls on its face, which is what I think will happen, it would sadden many, many people in Lower Saucon Township. Thank you.
Mark Ozimek?
I pretty much agree with what everybody said. I personally do not use the library. I don't go to the library. I haven't gone since I've lived in Bethlehem and went to their library. Not to say that I don't support it and agree with it, but I think reflecting on what I may have said at the last meeting is you really need to beware with the actions of Lower Saucon. The council, the lawyer, and just looking at what they're doing and what they did should give you your answer about who you don't want to deal with. Because if it was up to them, they would come in here and they would take over your library like they're trying to take over Lower Saucon. I guess that's all I got to say, and thanks for everybody else that spoke, because you did a wonderful job.
That's it, Bruce, unless there's someone who didn't sign that they want to speak.
Anybody that didn't sign that we're going to, well, I'd like to change my mind, I didn't pass.
Okay.
I'm getting fired up here again. I've been following this issue for a year and a half. I've been to many meetings, spoken at many meetings. The woman who described what a great library is, I'm sure you have it here, and that's what our Hellertown library is for us in our community. So everything about this to me over the last year has been unusual and continues to be. I was on the council in 2015 when we voted to bring our funding for library services to Hellertown from Bethlehem Area Library. It was a wise decision then, it was a well-researched decision then. It's worked out very well for the community until this issue was brought forth. So to answer Mr. Bile, the reason we're here this evening is it appears on your agenda with next steps indicated. I hope the next step will be for this board to tell Lower Saucon to sign up with Hellertown Area Library and end this divisive issue right now.
I'd like to just clarify a few small things. As Tom Bile pointed out, there was a deadline for the initial proposal. It was May 4th. That deadline did pass. So any type of agreement with Lower Saucon will require an offer from...
In the last 3 days. If I'm provoked, I will read them all aloud. More to the point, I want our new board members to take them seriously. Nobody supports this nonsense. I don't know what's in it for the Upper Saucon supervisors. I always thought they were good guys. I've known a couple of them for decades. I don't know what is in this for them. Financially, it's a turd. Financially, it is a Trojan horse that will bring economic hardship to this library. In terms of community building, it is so breathtakingly unethical for us to do this. It is breathtakingly unethical for us to say, oh, sure, you're going to take your kid
You're way out. You're gonna take your kid, oh, an extra 45 minutes of driving to take your kid to the library. I don't think you think that's a good idea. And that's what we're in the middle of. It's gone on too long. I want to thank the audience members for being astoundingly well informed. As much time as I spend on this stuff, I learn a lot from you guys. Thank you.
Kathy, it was 35 emails since our last board meeting, 110 since the beginning of the year. Thank you.
And I've read them all, and they all echo all of your comments tonight. So. Okay, let's move on. The next topic is bylaws, and we have a current set of bylaws which we were trying to upgrade and change, and submitted them. Part of our bylaw agreement with Upper Saucon Township has to approve any bylaw changes. So we did that, we submitted it to Upper Saucon Township, and I'm going to turn this over to Tom Bile, so he can hopefully give us an update.
I can give you a little bit of an update. The initial reaction from the township solicitor was that the proposed bylaws are inconsistent with the library regulations. And I believe Attorney Leeson would agree with that, because the library regulations have right in there that you have to meet the 15% funding threshold in order to qualify as a voting member.
It's, to be, and just so you know, Tom, it's the criteria that they review for determining qualifications.
For state aid. So without meeting that criteria, we put our state aid in jeopardy.
That's correct.
And unless we want to put our state aid in jeopardy, I don't think we can have that provision guaranteeing Coopersburg and Lower Milford voting membership. We can't have that in the bylaws, because your state aid now is going to become put in jeopardy.
Mr. Bile, as Mark Sullivan has explained to us many times, that 15% rule is widely ignored all over the state, because we have situations where you have a municipality 20,000 and then a municipality of 2,000. And the proportionate dollar amount doesn't work out. So a lot of governments, including the ones that have funded this library for the last 59 years, have been okay with just sort of ignoring that.
I'll make two responses to that. The first one is you do jeopardize, I believe we get about $50,000 a year, Lynette, in terms of state aid?
It's a little more than that.
58. So you're going to put that $58,000 per year in jeopardy if Office of Commonwealth Library ever decides that they want to strictly enforce their regulations. The other point I will make is that I've heard multiple times how we're going to have to hire 4 more people if we accept Lower Saucon Township, because the regulations will require us to hire 4 more people. So you're telling me it's all right to ignore the regulations and the requirements of the state if it satisfies your need of having Coopersburg and Lower Milford have voting members, but if it doesn't meet your needs, which is to vote Lower Saucon down, then the regulations should be strictly followed. I don't think that's fair.
Part of the reason that the bylaws were redone and submitted were as a result of the conversation that you and I had. And I followed everything that you suggested and took it to our attorney. And then we submitted it to you and you turned it down. So
Well,
I've
the board
been
didn't,
wanting to know for months, why the hell did you make those suggestions?
the board didn't turn it down. The board asked their attorney to review it, Bruce, which they did. I can get a written report if you want. I guess there's two things we can do to move forward, Bruce. We could either have your attorney review the bylaws and issue an opinion as to whether the bylaws put state aid in jeopardy, or if you want Upper Saucon to come back with bylaws that they feel don't put the state aid in jeopardy, I'll ask my board to do that.
Okay.
But you understand what the issue is, Bruce,
No,
right?
what I understand the issue is, I did exactly what you suggested.
He's not a resident.
And then it got
He
turned
shouldn't
down.
be.
Bruce, I'm not an expert on
Well, no,
the regulations.
I understand.
I've got to rely on the attorney, just like you have to rely on your attorney when you get into detailed discussions about the regulations.
Okay, I think we'll beat this horse to death. I think that's gonna have to go on the agenda for the next meeting. In the meantime, we'll have Bill look at the bylaw proposal. That's okay with everybody?
Well, as long as we're on the bylaws, I mean, if we're talking about maybe updating the bylaws, perhaps there should be something in there that any board representative is a resident of the community. And not an employee. And not an employee. And I'm not saying that against Tom or Patrick, because I think they're really good people, but I think that's just wrong. I think that should have been, we just never thought that would happen, so we didn't think to put it in our bylaws. I'm not sure.
So can you deal with that?
I don't know.
What do you ask? Do you want me to put together proposed new bylaws, or?
Well, you could take
I'm not
this
sure what I'm
and
asking.
work with it, and then we ought to put something in there that it shouldn't be,
There should be a
they should be
definition.
a resident of the service area at least, and they should not be township employees.
I think that's something for the board to deliberate and determine whether or not that's something we
Okay.
want to move forward with.
I don't see any reason with being an employee of the township. I'm a resident of the township, I've been a resident of the township, I grew up here, I lived here almost my entire life. I've gone to the library, I went to the library, it was on Beverly Hills. My mother volunteered at the library when it was a two-car garage, like 60 years ago. So I think I'm entitled to be here whether I'm an employee of the township or not. So I don't see any reason why there should be an exclusion for employees of the township to be on the board of directors.
Who's your boss?
Yeah.
That's insignificant.
It's
It
him.
doesn't
No,
matter.
it's not.
That does not matter. That is not the subject we're talking about. We're talking about whether a board member can be the employee or be a township employee. That has nothing to do with the relationship I have with Mr. Bynum. That's a separate issue.
Well, then I think the issue is, I gotta say,
It's literally cronyism.
hopefully I agree with you, Patrick, but having Tom on here when he's not a resident of, not even close to being a resident of the township, I just think it's a mistake. So-
Is it a requirement to be a resident of the township? Is
It
it,
is.
is it
No,
in any paperwork that it's a requirement?
No, absolutely not. That's what I'm saying.
It
I
should,
think
it
that
is,
should-
but it's in other municipalities.
I know that. That's what I'm saying. I think that should
Bylaws.
be.
Excuse me, I believe it's on the qualifications for people to apply to be on the board. I think it says you have to
should
be
be.
a resident. I think it says that.
Yeah.
I did not see that. It's not in your bylaws, and it's not in the state library.
I don't think it's in the bylaws or the library code, but if you go to the application that you fill out, it does ask you your address, and somewhere on there, I think it says that.
Well, I don't think we're gonna get this resolved
No.
tonight, so let's.
Tom, you also have a process that the township uses to interview all candidates for any of your boards or commissions. And I believe you require those people to be residents of the
We do
township,
not.
correct?
We do not. There are some boards that are required to be residents, like the planning commission and the zoning hearing board. But the library board, because there's nothing in the bylaws and there's nothing in the state law, there is no requirement for this one.
Okay, I was not aware of that, and so whenever I've advertised for a vacant position, I have made the assumption that the person has to be a resident, and I've advertised it that way, so.
I'm gonna step in for a second. The bylaws don't require it, and the bylaws are the rules for the library. So as of right now, there is no rule that someone needs to be a resident. I didn't create the application, and so whatever that was put in by somebody else, but we should follow the bylaws, because that is the governing documents for the library.
Tom, other than yourself, can you name any township appointee to any board or commission who's not a resident of Upper Saucon Township?
No, and the reason that is because for the other boards, it's right in the ordinances that create those boards that they have to be residents.
Can you name an instance? Can you name an instance? In which you said, gee, we wish we could have Joe, but he lives right over the line in Lower Milford or something. Can you name an
Yes,
instance?
I can. There were other non-residents that were considered for appointment to this board. I don't think, he asked me a general question, I think I answered his question. I don't want to embarrass anybody, I don't want, people knocking on these folks' doors. I think that's unfair to me.
So you agree that we should add it to our bylaws that whomever is appointed should be a resident?
I agree to follow whatever this board decides. If the majority of this board decides that you want residents on this board, then let's put it in the bylaws and see if it passes Upper Saucon Board of Supervisors, because. Well, but that's the process. You can laugh, but there's a process to getting the bylaws approved, and it doesn't stop with this board. It goes to the Board of Supervisors. That is the process.
This is very Soviet.
Let's shelve this until next month. Joe can look at, maybe make some suggestions on what we can do, and then we'll have this discussion next week. Otherwise, we're gonna be here all night. Okay, the next item is Lower Saucon Township partnership discussion. I didn't know what other term, I agree, there is no proposal by them, that deadline passed, I think, May 4th. I do want to mention one thing, I wrote myself a note on here. In the minutes from last month's, or the last meeting, under, it's the last point, under the second page, Lower Saucon Township status. There was a motion that we have a special meeting to discuss the Lower Saucon Township partnership and funding partners to come up with a proposal that would make financial sense for all. Prior to the meeting, we'd send them information regarding the library rules. We're also being requested that they give us feedback. And it was a motion, and it was seconded, and it was approved. Since April 18th, a lot of stuff has changed, and so we did not act on that. I don't even know how far we got down to try to set up a meeting with before funding. So.
Got as far as reaching out to the Lehigh Valley Chamber of Commerce to try to find a venue for the event space. And then that was promptly canceled because of all of the other stuff going on. And we didn't have a date or a plan or meetings and plus several of the colleges decided that they didn't want to host a potentially political football. So we didn't get anywhere on planning a special meeting because of other things going on. Although it was a very good idea, that we wanted to get everyone in the room, all of our funding partners, into one room to figure out what their ideas were, to figure out how to navigate the state regulations, our bylaws, funding needs, and community input. That was our plan. It wasn't an outright rejection of that Lower Saucon proposal. The last thing we voted on and approved was to have and organize this special meeting with all of our funders. And it didn't happen yet.
So I guess, as we move forward here, I mean, we can go back and readdress that, see if this is something we still want to do. A lot has changed since that April meeting, so I guess I'm just gonna open it up to the floor. I had Mark Sullivan on here, but he decided to go on vacation this week. So.
But if we made a motion and we all agreed to it, it was a unanimous vote that we agreed to it, why wouldn't we just do it?
Okay.
I mean, if we can, Lynette, my understanding is that, and Kathy, too, that we reached out to Penn State, Lehigh Valley, and
Candy had done that, but I don't know what the final outcome of that
I
was.
think they determined that they didn't want to get involved with political stuff.
we could ask the school.
Yeah.
They're already involved. They have a venue.
No, they're not. They bowed out.
They said no.
Great.
The school did?
Both of them.
We have 2 members on the board that represent the school district, so.
Oh, I didn't know it's the school district. I was
Oh, that's what I meant.
She said Penn State.
Oh, but I don't know.
No, the school district, since they're one of our funders.
We were looking for a neutral territory, but
I think at this point, you can't confuse it with the territory that we should have the meeting in.
But the school, it would be a viable choice if they would want to host it.
I'm not saying that a summit is a bad idea, but it might not be a practical idea. When you start adding up how many people would be in attendance at this meeting, I think you're getting to a number that's no longer manageable. And the idea of it being a productive meeting is gonna go way down. If, you're talking about 50 people. When you start talking about board
Not
members.
full boards, it's representatives from the board.
Okay, that wasn't made clear in the motion at the last meeting.
I agree.
So I think you gotta make it clear if it's just two representatives from each of the funding partners. And you gotta be careful about staff, because then you've got attorneys for all the funding partners, you have professional staff for all the funding partners. What could really seem like a meeting of 8 to 10 people can quickly become a meeting of 20 or 30 people.
And I totally agree. I think the thing is, at the last meeting, we were just at a wit's end.
I understand,
Right.
I get that. You
So it's
didn't know
like-
which way to go, you wanted to do something,
Yes.
I
We
get
had a
it, I
bunch of
get that.
motions that got voted down.
It was a motion that was kind of off the cuff, I
It
understand.
was like, okay, how can we all figure this out, all work together? Because we are all representatives of our funding partners, we should be able to figure it out. But when we weren't able to figure it out, we thought, okay, we'll go back to the actual funding partners and see what happens then.
I think your best way to get the information you're looking for, if you're looking for meaningful comments from your funding partners, is to invite the chairperson of each one of the funding partners to a meeting with maybe the chair and the vice chair of the library board.
I'm gonna tell you why I think that won't work. Some of the funding partners have demonstrated a real I'm not listening when we try to explain something more than 5 words long. Oh, it's money, must be free money, let's grab the money. And a lot of people's attention span stops right then and there. And I'm sorry, I want people to sit down long enough to listen to why the free money is tied to a string that you don't want to know what's on the other end of that string. And the best way to get them to listen is if there are 20, 30, 40 people also listening. And then the people who are being I'm not listening are gonna know that there are consequences to all those people seeing that they're not listening. That's why we need more people in the room.
But we also added to that we would give them information ahead of time. We would ask for some feedback ahead of time. And then at the meeting that we would explain what's going on, because it is complicated. And that was why I wasn't especially in favor of that beginning.
Maybe we can do this. I think Attorney Reeson, he sent out, over the last couple of days, he sent out a really good legal review of some of the important issues involving Lower Saucon Township. And that's a really good start, because this whole idea to think that somehow you can add Lower Saucon Township and it's easy and quick, that's not reality. I know that people here tonight don't believe me that I have an open mind, but I really do have an open mind. And I'm not here to push some political agenda. I am not a politician, unlike some people who spoke tonight. I am not a politician. I am here as someone who's been in public service and committed their life to public service for the last 25 years. I want to do what's right for the place that I work, for the place that I live. That's where I come from. So I think maybe the best thing to do is maybe this board can form a committee. Have that committee really dig deep into some of these Lower Saucon issues. Work with the solicitor, who has this really good legal memo prepared, and let's identify what are the opportunities. You know, obviously there's money as an opportunity, but there's also a lot of challenges to adding Lower Saucon.
Why wouldn't we include the funders or something like that?
Well, why you don't include the funders? We talked about how the funders aren't educated, how they don't want to hear, how they have their fingers in their ears. So why don't...
Excuse me, we need to educate them.
Exactly, I agree with you. Let's start with the committee. Let's explore all the issues. Let's identify all the issues, And then we use that, the committee's results, we put it in a report, and we share it with our funders. And we say, hey, funders, we did our due diligence, we looked at this, we studied it every which way. Here's why we can, or here's why we can't add Lower Saucon. Here are the legitimate obstacles to doing this. Wouldn't that be more productive to say, we looked at this, we did our job, we understand all the issues, and now funding partner, we want you to understand the issues and understand what we're doing and why we're making the decision we are. Because a big part of the problem here, you don't trust me because you think I'm politically motivated, and I don't trust many of you because there's an election in Lower Saucon Township. I think many of you are politically motivated. So this is come on. So you're telling me this.
Tom, it's not a back and forth
All right.
discussion, and you don't need to be offensive to our.
I'm not being offensive.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you
I'm
are.
not. I'm speaking, I'm trying to speak honestly. I'm trying to make progress on something that we haven't been able to make progress
Well,
on
we
for
could
15 months.
put together a committee, but you need to quit being rude to our.
I guess my point is, there's a big election in Lower Saucon Township.
There's one in Upper Saucon too.
I agree, but the one in Lower Saucon Township can change the majority of their board. And I think some of the politics of Lower Saucon Township are overflowing to this board. That's my personal opinion of this.
No.
Let's try to take the politics out of it, and let's get to the heart of these legal and very difficult issues. And that's why I think we should do a committee, and then share the committee's recommendation with our funding partners, so they understand that we looked at this thoroughly, and that we made some definitive conclusions, and we have some good legal advice to back it all up.
So why don't we form a committee consisting of the 4 funders that are represented here on the board? So it would be 4 people.
Oh, you can't have 4. I think that's fine.
Yeah, you don't want 4, because now we've got Sunshine Act requirements, because now you have 4 people that could actually make a decision for the library.
Who do you suggest is on this committee? 2 people?
I think you want 3 members. I think you want 3 members.
It doesn't violate the sunshine?
No, because the majority of our board is 4.
4 voting members.
What's wrong with having 4 and being in full compliance with the sunshine law? Are they non-compliance
Is 4
with
a
that law?
quorum?
What?
Is 4 a quorum?
4 is a quorum.
Because you're talking voting members, 4 is a quorum.
The only thing I have a problem with is not including the Lower Milford and the Coopersburg folks, even though they aren't voting members, to have some input as to what we do.
Well, everyone, this whole board will have an input on what we do, because the committee reports back to this board. It's a fact-finding committee, it's not a decision-making committee. They're going to do all the legwork, they're going to do all the research, and come back to this board with some good recommendations.
I have a point of order here, though. Sure. Because we passed the motion at our last meeting. Can we just like ignore that and move on from there?
The board votes, you can choose to revise the motion, you can choose to have a new motion. That's up to the board.
So we should go back and address that motion to.
I
Yeah,
agree.
probably have a
I think
motion
you
to
should
disregard.
address the original motion, and then if you propose a new motion to move forward with a different plan, I think that's what you need to do.
All right, let's do that first. So let's go back. You all have a chance to look at the minutes, so you can read that.
Okay, so let's read that. Can I read that?
Oh,
Okay.
Can I just ask a question? Sorry, I think it's confusing, like, am I allowed to ask a question from not?
No.
No, it's okay.
Sorry. Okay, Katie Cruz makes a motion, this is out of the minutes from last month, or 2 months ago. Katie Cruz makes a motion that we have a special meeting to discuss Lower Saucon Township partnership with our funding partner to come up with a proposal that would make financial sense for all. Prior to the meeting, we would send them information regarding the library rules by which we are bound. It would also be requested that they give us feedback. So, the motion was made, it was seconded, and it was unanimously approved, so the motion passed. And guess what we're talking about for now is we need to go back and readdress that motion with another motion to disregard that motion, so then we can move on to.
The problem is that the person that made the motion is no longer on the board, so she can't rescind her motion.
No, I think we're just gonna have to make a motion to disregard it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I need a motion to disregard that motion. Oh, no, it's not from the final one, Sue.
So moved.
I'll make that motion, please.
Wait a minute, who said that?
Sorry.
Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
This is a motion, we are rescinding.
This one. So that then we could go ahead and try to do the motion.
Yeah. We have to do roll call. We have to do voice control.
Yes, Kathy, if we could make sure we know whose names and who's voting.
And just to be clear, we're voting whether to rescind Candy Cruz's motion to set up a cooperative meeting as laying groundwork for setting up another meeting.
Right.
What's in it for us? I mean, we had good meetings, things scheduled. Somewhat rambling discussion. I'm not scheduled, but it was a good plan.
Mhm.
So what are we replacing it with?
The committee.
Yeah, I think before we can move on, what are we replacing it with is to rescind this and go back to sort of the work session.
Thanks.
So start at one end, then the other.
Okay. Vicki?
I'm voting to rescind, so yes, yes.
I'm sorry, what were your first?
Ellen.
If I
Oh,
wasn't,
no.
but I wasn't here at the last
Well,
meeting, so.
We've been recording the votes,
Oh,
but her, she is not a voting member.
right.
Right, but we record them.
Yeah, we've been recording them. But you can
I
abstain if you
didn't
want to.
say anything, yeah. So we're voting to rescind this one in order to have a different meeting,
Right.
to do essentially the same thing?
Yeah. We're voting to rescind this so that we can figure out what we're doing next.
Okay.
Welcome to the library.
Doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Thank you. Well, I'll abstain since I wasn't here and don't want to step on what they decided at the last meeting.
Can't
Yes.
abstain.
Yes.
You really can't abstain.
I'll say no. No.
I'll vote yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Got it.
So there was one abstention, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yeses. We're fine. Okay, so that disappeared. Now, I guess the suggestion is going forward to look into what we should do and report back to the board. So I guess we need to have, I don't want 3 people from Lower Saucon Township on this committee.
Point of order.
Yeah,
A board member is an ex officio member with no voting rights. Can they be added to that committee?
There's nothing in the bylaws that are against having an ex officio.
I mean, we would form a quorum if we had 4 members, if one of those members was an ex officio member.
This is correct because it requires 4 voting members.
So could you have 3 plus myself or someone from Coopersburg as the 4th?
Or both.
Or both, yeah.
This is correct because as long as they're not voting members, they would not be able to conduct any action at the meeting.
But we would represent
they have
the
some input.
township.
You have input and you represent the townships.
Bruce, I did put together a sample motion. And can we take a look at it for discussion purposes? I thought it would make it easier for discussion purposes.
Load it up and-
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to make everyone's life a little bit easier.
We should have started about a year and a half.
Actually, there's a couple of motions here. I just put the names in there only because I knew these people and they, well, I had a chance to talk to them and they said that they'd be willing to do it if that was the will of the full board.
And so instead of having people that have been on the board for a while, maybe worked at the library for 15 years, we'll just get newbies on here. Sounds like a great idea.
I would also add that the information this committee would gather, not only have the oldsters at this table been doing that for this year and a half, so have people in the audience. I think there's at least 20 or 30 of you who could stand up and give you an elevator speech that the committee of newbies would learn a lot from. And by the time they were done, you'd have all your information. Additionally, and Tom, you've been in the audience here when Mark Sullivan has just been a fountain of information about the nuances of how the state system works and how you work with it and the requirements and also the questions involving when does a patron get access PA and when doesn't. I mean, I see this as reinventing the wheel, digging a hole, filling it in, and digging it out again. That's my concern with one of my concerns with your proposal number one. I echo Kathy Parsons' concern as well.
Could we have the proposal read out for the benefit of those in the audience?
I think we should.
Yeah, oh, sure.
No,
Sure.
it would have to be
Tom,
voted
you
on.
wrote it so you can read it.
We'd have, it'd be a motion, we'd have to vote on.
That is correct. That is correct.
Well, for,
If you
no,
make
wait.
it a motion, we have to vote on it. Maybe there's another motion to read.
Well, if we don't use the word motion, then I'll just say blank instead of motion. I mean, yeah, we're discussing, Tom said it was for discussion purposes, and that's fine.
What post office would say, don't say anything.
Okay. One, to form special committee consisting of Vicky Mount, Patrick Leonard, and blank, and Attorney Leeson, to evaluate the challenges and opportunities of providing library services to Lower Saucon Township. The committee's assessment should include identifying the advantages and disadvantages of providing library services to Lower Saucon, as well as the legal constraints and likely operational impacts. The committee is authorized to contact representatives of Lower Saucon, Hellertown, and the Office of Commonwealth Libraries as part of its evaluation and assessment of these issues. The committee shall provide the full board with a written report on its findings and recommendations. I mean, again, we've been doing that for a year and a half. You guys do it better than I do it. So this looks like a way to have volunteers stirring the pot for another 5 years.
I know, Tom, you just penciled in some names, but.
I did, I just penciled in some names.
I let you finish earlier, so let me finish.
I'm just agreeing.
To have all new people that haven't gone through the last year and a half of this would be ridiculous. I can't think of any of the words. I'm surprised you didn't pencil it yourself and, well, so we would have, at least done some of our meetings, so we have somewhat of an idea of what's going on here. So I would have a real problem with that. I think we need to have, I don't mind having one, a newer person on there, but I think you need to have some folks on this committee that, have been doing this for a while.
Well, I think there's one still available though, right? There's a blank there for the
I know,
name.
but there's 2 new ones that are blank. I'm I would like to see two blanks and a new one, is what I'm saying. The other thing is, I think if we're gonna even address this kind of a motion, that the board, with a written, I'm looking at the last sentence, the full board with a written report and its findings and recommendations. And I think we need to go do that. Might be,
I think it should be December 30th.
well, that could be, but it needs to have a drop dead date in
Yeah,
there
December
at some
30th.
point.
But to apply for, service areas, isn't it fall?
Oh, that's true.
Well, this proposal has nothing to do with service areas. If the recommendation of this committee is to change the service area, that's a whole other discussion that this board needs to vote on.
No, I was responding to Kathy's December 30th deadline. That's why I said
That's a good point.
the fall is when you apply for your service area.
When does that happen, is that?
In
When do we,
November.
so, could make it October 31st or something.
I'd like to recommend that you involve Mark Sullivan in any kind of committee because, as John said, he is a font of information and has been in,
Mark Sullivan's not a member of the board though.
he is not, but,
He's a consultant, I mean,
But he's not a member of the board, he's already addressed by the state leader of the Office of Commonwealth Library, so he's already there. And I would
He's not a-
expect he would be,
he is not employed by the Office of Commonwealth Libraries either. He is our district consultant, he's employed by Allentown Public Library, that is our district library.
so he does not represent the Office of Commonwealth Library at all,
No,
No.
and he speaks an awful lot for them.
He's a district consultant for libraries.
it is his job to be aware of all the regulations.
So then maybe just can advise, we can just change that to include that position. Like, again, he's not a board member, so he should not have a seat at the board, he's not a board member.
You can have a special committee that's not board members.
I don't think that's appropriate. I think it needs to be, they
But
need
you
to
think
be
it's
board members,
appropriate to
whether
have all the
it's
board
board member or non-voting or voting member, I think is fine. But I don't think he isn't a member of this board. He shouldn't be included in that. He can certainly be consulted to it.
so you're saying he comes to the meetings or he doesn't come to the meetings?
He can come to the meetings, but he can't make a decision for this board.
No, I don't think that.
We're not even proposing it.
Yeah,
It's
okay, I
just,
just want
a
to be
lot of
clear.
times we're going down a path and we don't know where we're going, at least you can clarify.
That's fine.
You know,
Patrick,
Mark-
this is an information-seeking committee, is that correct?
Yeah.
So you want information from knowledgeable people, and that's why I'm suggesting that Mark Sullivan be a member of the committee and more than just a consultant on an occasional level. I think he would be of great value to the committee as you're seeking information.
But we're not gonna make a member of the Office of Commonwealth Libraries part of the committee. I understand.
I think we're arguing over something.
But my point is that I don't think we can consult with him, but he should not be part of it.
I don't understand why you would want to take management for that resource.
We can consult with him, but he shouldn't be an active member of the
Well, he's an
committee.
information seeking committee and he has
For
the
the
information.
same reason we're gonna have Attorney Gleason as part of this. to
But he's
consult
an
with.
attorney for the board.
Patrick, I don't know where you're going.
Yeah, you're not making me sale, Patrick.
Okay. I'm totally confused.
We don't have a
Me
motion.
too.
We've just been consulting. Well, okay, can I mention one, just throwing this out there, we're certainly not doing Robert's Rules of Orders anymore, so why not? One of the other motions that was made at our last meeting that some of us liked was the idea that we had a discussion instead with Hellertown Area Library. And Township and this board. I can't remember if Upper Saucon was included in this or not, but the idea of including Hellertown in a proposal to me is so much more appealing than anything else. So I wondered if anyone had any thoughts on that?
I think that's a good point, Kathy, and that's why I specifically put in here that the committee is authorized to talk to Hellertown. I think that idea of regionalization should be pursued as part of this committee's duties.
Well, Tom, by now you're very well aware of all the structural problems that occur when you cross a county line. We have regionalization up the yin yang already.
Yeah, we got our own reasons.
Yeah, we do, and it covers 2 counties. And we have Instabook from, I don't know how many libraries in those 2 counties. Hellertown has something similar in Northampton County. Now, and it was Candy sitting there watching me bleed, who advanced this proposal, and Candy, I commend you for putting so much work into this in good faith. But I thought it was dead on arrival. By crossing county line, because the proposal was essentially to merge the 2 libraries. Now you've got, I don't know if you ever merged 2 companies and had 2 CEOs trying to get along. Well, now we have 2, we already have 4 local governments that don't like each other for taxing entities. Now we have 6 that don't like each other. We have 2 completely different operating systems for property taxes. And because, if I saw Northampton County property tax, I wouldn't know what it was. Their bills are different from ours. And there are so many structural impediments, and there's nothing in it for us. We already have a good system. Hellertown has their system. I don't know how good it is, but it's there. So crossing county lines, no one would have thought of that if these meatloaves from Lower Saucon Township Council hadn't started throwing firebombs at us. It makes no sense to me.
So you want to go with Tom's idea? I mean, we've got to move on here.
My response to that is, yes, regionalization is difficult, but it's not impossible. There's nothing in the library code that says you can't regionalize between 2 libraries that are in different counties. There's nothing in the code that prohibits that. Plus, let's look at what might happen here, worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, there's no change in the Lower Saucon board. And Lower Saucon continues to go without library services. That does not help Hellertown, because Hellertown's not going to get the funding that they need. So regionalization, there's a little bit in it for everybody. Everyone's got to swallow a little bit of a bitter pill, but at least there's funding, and the funding can be spread around in a better manner than what we might have now. You might be setting up a winner-takes-all scenario here, where if Lower Saucon Council doesn't change, now Hellertown gets no funding for at least 3 years.
If you can sell that to the Lower Saucon residents here, you're a genius.
I'm not looking to sell anything. I'm talking about realities. There's a situation here where Lower Saucon may not fund Hellertown, and how long can Hellertown last? I'm trying to come up with a system that's sustainable for both libraries.
If we had not entertained Lower Saucon Township at all, that we may be in a different, far better space today. I think we've kept picking at this movement, because our funding entities wouldn't let us.
What's the harm in leaving it in the proposal? If it goes nowhere, if Lower Saucon says, we can't stand Hellertown, we're never going back, what's the harm in at least talking about it and making it a possibility? Isn't regionalization, at least in its idea, a good idea?
Let's go back to the core problem. The core problem is you have 4 old white men in Lower Saucon Township who are giving old white men a bad name by being jerks.
There's nothing on there's nothing that we can do as the Southern Lehigh Library Board to change the four white, the voters of Lower Saucon have to, it's up to them to change that.
Understand.
Let's try to do the best that we can to make the best of a bad situation. And the worst situation here is for Town to go without any funding for a number of years. That's a bad situation for everybody.
Candy's first proposal was an excellent proposal for the residents of Lower Saucon Township to get some library services. Does it solve everything?
And he
No.
knows nothing.
But,
But I think my committee proposal is a follow-up to Candy's proposal. She talked about regionalization, and that's where I got the idea to put it in the draft proposal.
remember, there were a couple different proposals. We may be talking, we're talking about,
Her first proposal was to talk about regionalization with Southern Lehigh and Hellertown. That was her first proposal, and that was voted down.
no, before that, it was a plan for a limited month-to-month lease sort of deal.
Oh, that, I like
That
that.
This was even before the May, this was before the April meeting.
Correct.
I got you.
It was a good proposal. It was Lower Saucon did
It was
that.
in February, I think.
Let the committee explore that. They can explore a month-to-month scenario. Let's give it to the committee and let them run it.
We're not getting anywhere. I would like to get on with it.
So should we move on to number 2 in Tom's?
Well,
One at a time.
yeah, let's deal with number 1 and.
Maybe we
Anybody
can
else
talk
has-
about what, do we like the committee idea? Maybe we can just do a straw poll and, does at least 4 members of this board like the committee idea?
I like the committee idea, I just don't like it.
The membership. Okay, all right, let's go with the committee idea first, then we can move on to the membership.
Straw poll?
Yes, do we like the committee idea in general?
Yes.
All right.
No,
No,
it's a waste of time.
all right, we have one person that says no, the rest say yes. What about the membership?
Quite frankly, I think what you're gonna find out is you need a whole community. And straw poll, yeah. We've been working on this for a year now. We've been down this path 2 or 3 times. Now, you show up with this brand new idea that we dealt with years ago.
I'm trying to help.
No, you're not helping.
Well,
You're bringing up old rules that we've already dealt with, but let's move on with this.
All right, let's talk about the membership of the committee. Is there anyone who wants to serve on the committee?
I do.
Now, all right, we'll go right down. So we got Vicky.
I think it should be 2 reps from Upper Saucon, 1 from the school board, and the 2 ex officio members.
Well, let's see who is a willing participant in the process. So we got Vicky, we got Kathy. You're a willing participant. We got Kat, and we got Patrick. All right. Now,
I very much like Kat's idea of having 2 members from Upper Saucon Township being the largest contributors.
all right. So
But that already covered with Patrick and Vicki.
so we got Patrick and Vicky. We would have
I think Kathy, yes.
and then we would only have 3 voting members because you're not a voting member.
Correct.
Is Attorney Leeson good with that?
And also it should include Attorney Leeson and Mark Sullivan.
Yes.
Not as a committee, but as
I
advisors.
give up, I can see.
Well, wait, as advisors, they're not part of the committee.
They're not.
Yes,
Or
as
advisors.
advisors to the committee, it should include
Advisors,
Mark Sullivan
consultants,
and
or-
Attorney Leeson.
All right, let me just phrase put out there what the committee is.
I already looked at it.
All right, so I got Vicky Mon, I got Patrick Leonard, I've got Kat, I got Kathy, and Mark Sullivan as an advisor.
And Joe.
And Joe, yes.
Although I do think it's gonna be a waste of time.
Well, you're coming in with a bad attitude to start.
No,
At least have an
I'm
open
coming after
mind.
a year and a half worth of looking at it.
At least
as-
try to have an open mind.
He even got numbers.
Try to have an open mind.
Willing to keep the open mind, so yes, another.
Just try.
Ellen,
Just
Ellen,
I'm willing to go to represent Lower Milford as a non-voting member. I'm willing to be part of
we're
it.
not gonna be voting at all.
No, I
Anyway,
get that, I
so-
get that.
I think it's good for you to get the information.
I would do
We're
it.
adding Ellen.
Then that way you've got somebody from each of the companies.
Yes,
All right, we're adding Ellen.
Yes.
yeah, if you're looking for someone from each of the municipalities, I would do it. And I'm not interested, I just, I know my place.
Oh, we're open spots. This is great.
So,
Now we need information.
we're going to,
So I have it written down if you want me to read it.
sure,
Do I need to say everyone's names?
no.
You should, just so it's clear and it's in the record exactly who's being appointed to this committee.
So, motion to form a special information-seeking committee consisting of the 2 representatives from Upper Saucon, Vicky Mon and Patrick Leonard, and 1 rep from the school board, Kathy Parsons, and the 2 ex officio members, Kat Moyer and Ellen, sorry, what's your last name? Diebel. And Attorney Leeson and Mark Sullivan, and then continue on with Biles' proposal to evaluate the challenges and opportunities providing library services to Lower Saucon Township. Committee's assessment should include identifying the advantages and disadvantages of providing library services to Lower Saucon, as well as legal constraints and likely operational impacts. Committee is authorized to contact representatives of Lower Saucon, Hellertown, and the Office of Commonwealth Libraries. And I would add, receive community comments, like resident comments, like take those into evaluation and listen to them. As part of its evaluation assessment of these issues, the committee shall provide the full board with a written report on its findings and its recommendations.
And do we want to include the deadline of October
October
31st?
31st.
I'd rather not hold us to a deadline.
well, we need a deadline, otherwise it gets,
Well,
never
I
happens.
think part of the requirement is that every month, I mean, next month, this committee ought to come back with, okay, here's what we've done to this point.
A monthly report.
Yeah.
How often do you think this committee will be meeting, Tom?
Every Thursday.
I'm gonna have to check my schedule. Well,
There's no proposal to consider. Oh, we haven't made a motion yet. Well,
Any idea of how often the committee will be meeting, or when they will start, like?
I think they should start pretty damn quickly.
yeah, we meet all the time.
Kathy, what does that mean all the time? Do you wanna meet weekly?
When you say Hellertown, you mean Hellertown Borough or Hellertown Library?
We're-
Do we divide it into a period of, so many weeks and we want to have 5 meetings or something like that? Because right now, our schedules are going to be pretty dynamic. We're not going to know, we can't say tonight when we'll be able to meet. So we might need some time.
I mean, time is of the essence, right? Like, we wanna
So-
Oh, I
find,
didn't
fact
know.
finding.
Why is it of the essence?
Well, do you want this to go on forever? I mean, is that
I'm
the
thinking we
plan?
investigate it thoroughly.
Well, I know, but we have to start, and I'm wondering when we will start. And how often we will,
Lower Saucon
how
left
often we
Bethel.
will be willing to put the time in, and that, I just wanna have an expectation.
I know, I'm just saying, it took 3 years for them for Lower Saucon Township to leave Bethlehem. Because
Actually,
they,
it took 5 years.
5 years. So they really looked into it. I think it's a good idea.
So the
45
longer
page
this
report.
goes on, the longer they don't have library services.
Well,
We do have
hopefully,
library service.
they do have library services with Hellertown. And hopefully the Lower Saucon Township Board will come to their senses and fund Hellertown. And I think if we think about it for a little bit, they might come to that conclusion. Oh, you gotta hope. Okay, so seriously, I think meeting, if we can, if we come up with a date, once every 2 weeks.
Still need to vote until it's forming.
I know, she was asking about time, I don't know.
I leave it to the committee to figure out how often we meet to achieve
Sure.
an appropriate goal.
I think you should have an initial meeting to kind of who's going to do what, so you won't have 4 people doing the same thing. And, kids playing soccer, and balls with the corner.
All right, let's move on. Someone
All right.
You've got the ocean, right? Did we get it?
Sirens go off.
I apologize for that. We are having a situation with our fire alarm. It's being handled as quickly as possible.
Okay.
All right, I'll make a second.
There is no fire.
Yes, there is, you just can't see it.
Good, Mark.
Kat, you made the motion?
Yes,
Kat made the motion
and I
and
can
seconded.
write it out for you.
Oh, I definitely do.
And I think again, we gotta do a voice vote. Okay, so, Vicki, we'll start with you.
Yes.
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 Yes. John?
Yes.
Kat?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
There you go. Ah, way to go,
Could
Tom.
we maybe agree on something else that might make it easier for all of us, life easier for all of us, and agree that the Lower Saucon issue will not come up before this board until the committee makes its recommendation?
Ooh, I like that too.
I would agree with that.
Because there's really no reason. We're-
We can all just sit and argue with each other. And not get anything done.
About what?
I mean, it's entertaining.
Yeah. Instead of motion, which is like a-
Is the committee meeting public?
Okay, can we move on? Or were you expecting us to,
Well, I think the next two, Bruce, let me say first, are we all in agreement? Can we put in the minutes that there's the consensus of the board that we're not going to bring up the Lower Saucon issue until the committee presents its findings to the full board? Are we all in agreement there?
sure?
Yes.
All right, and Kathy, if you can just note that in the minutes that there was
Yep.
consensus among the board members that we're not going to bring up Lower Saucon issues until the committee makes its recommendation.
Don't even say the name.
I think that
So
will
no,
allow
you
us
don't have to
to
come.
focus on other library issues that may have been neglected because we've been dealing with this Lower Saucon issue for so long.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, she's got it in the notes.
I got it.
The other two motions I have here, again, they are for discussion purposes. And I'll tell you what my thinking was behind them. You have 11,000 residents in Lower Saucon that currently are in an unserved library area. Mark Sullivan's words, not mine. Probably not an ideal situation. I know they can buy cards at Hellertown, that's great. So my thought was, let's also extend the ability to buy cards to Lower Saucon residents, allow them to buy Southern Lehigh library cards without access, not with access.
Library because of our lower, the LCLC agreement.
And that's why I have in there, in the most subject to any reasonable limitations imposed by the director. I would leave that up to the director to decide what limitations are appropriate and what limitations are not appropriate.
The LC fund is
I just think it's not a good situation. Let's allow, you've got retired people, you have senior citizens, you might have kids that want to use our library. What's the problem with allowing them to use our
I
library?
have the reason. The reason is because then Lower Saucon will cut them off.
Cut them off?
From Hellertown. They won't reimburse them anymore for Hellertown. They'll say you can buy cards at Southern Lehigh. And then the numbers will start going up here and there will be that thought, oh, okay, I guess they do like Southern Lehigh. They're buying cards from them because that would be the only library available to them. I don't think we're cutting off any residents. They can get cards at Hellertown easily.
Plus, our library is already overworked,
Right.
and the process of adding those Lower Saucon members to our library is not an easy one. You have to manually go into the system and convert permissions. And so even if it wasn't already against our Lehigh Carbon Library Cooperative Agreement to not offer services to unserved areas, it's still adding staff hours and workload onto them when we're already short-staffed by what, 2 or 3, 4 librarians? Three.
All right, how about as an alternative to that? earlier this year, we used to allow Lower Saucon residents with Hellertown library cards to use our library. What about going back to that?
That was through Access PA, which we're not allowed to extend because it's.
I don't think it was through access.
No, we did it as a favor, as a courtesy, for a short period of time while discussions were being held.
What is the harm in allowing Lower Saucon residents? Well, I understand with selling, but why not allow those who have Hellertown cards to use Southern Lehigh Library?
There was only 100 residents that even bothered to do that, and they could actually already use telephone. I don't think we're cutting anyone off.
I think
I think we are cutting people
I
off.
think frankly what you're gonna do is open up the back door and Lower Saucon's gonna
Yes.
be in there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I think you're gonna open up the back door, one card holder at a time, and all of a sudden, Lower Saucon.
Well, no, they've got to get Hellertown cards before they can come here. They can't come here and buy cards. They'd have to get Hellertown cards.
That's
I
Access
understand
PA.
that, but Lower Saucon's gonna go see.
It's not Access PA. Lynette, we were not, what we were doing earlier this year had nothing to do with Access PA.
We did though, those residents had Access PA, which is why we extended them the courtesy of the services for an additional month.
Hellertown doesn't sell Access PA to Lower Saucon residents.
They had already before the disagreement with Lower Saucon and Hellertown, and they already had Access PA before Hellertown lost its service area, Lower Saucon service area. So yes, those residents that were using our library from Lower Saucon were using it through the Access PA program, and we were extending it on a monthly basis as a courtesy, and we ended that in February.
But it couldn't have been all Access PA
It
because
was all Access PA.
it couldn't have been because Lower Saucon was able to buy Hellertown cards as of like January 1st.
Not then.
We
They
are,
were going through the whole process, so we allowed them to come here for that month or two. Just to kind of have
Until
residents.
things were figured out, and then things never got figured out, and we decided to stop extending free services of our overextended staff to residents who are not in our service area.
Can Lynette answer the question? She knows what they were given.
through the end of February, as a courtesy while all of this was being discussed, we did extend privileges to Lower Saucon Township residents who had a Hellertown library card, an existing Hellertown card. And they were able to take things out of our library only. They did not have any privileges for programming. And they could not use the service where items transfer or transit from other libraries in our cooperative. So so I am concerned about extending that privilege.
Lynette, were the residents from Hellertown who had Southern Lehigh cards, we extended that because they had Southern Lehigh library cards through the Access PA program, correct?
No. If they had an existing Hellertown card,
Okay,
then they were able to use our library only through the end of February.
and that was my mistake. I thought they already had our cards through the Access PA program, because I know I have to apply for a Bethlehem card if I want to use Bethlehem
Correct.
Library with the Access PA program.
And it does say access to children's programs, but if they cease after December or February 28th, so.
Good idea. You know, regardless of who you think is at fault in the Hellertown Lower Saucon dispute, I think it's kind of a neighborly thing to do, but if this board is not inclined to do that, I respect the will of this board.
Why don't we see what the committees might have some input into that next week?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay. So, can I flip this sheet of paper over and move on? Okay. Fundraising update. Read between the lines, Cap.
All right, so you guys pass those down. And pass those down. So the read between the lines update is that as of, I don't think we never had a meeting in May or June due to scheduling conflicts and my own schedule being crazy. I actually have a statement to read out with regards to read between the lines. I'm resigning as the chair of the Read Between the Wines fundraiser. My professional and life commitments have grown significantly in the past couple months, leaving me unable to devote the necessary time and effort to this role. And I believe it's in the best interest of the fundraiser and Southern Lehigh Library to step down and give the newly appointed members of our board a chance to contribute to the success of the Southern Lehigh Public Library by taking up the workload of our largest annual fundraiser. As some of you know, our target goal to raise for 2023 was between $16,000 and $20,000, which requires anywhere from 50 to 70 hours of volunteer work by the Read Between the Wines chair and additional time from the committee members. I don't see any problems with the new chair reaching that goal between now and October, as this is when I started work on it last year after my accident. I express my heartfelt gratitude to each of our current and past board members, our library staff, and the Southern Lehigh Friends Group and volunteers for their unwavering support and collaboration during my time as chair. It's been a privilege working with all of you, such dedicated individuals. And I apologize for any inconvenience caused and willing to facilitate a smooth transition. I am available in between my erratic work schedules to provide necessary information to whomever is appointed new chair to get them set up to take over the fundraiser. While my resignation may bring disruption, I know that I remain dedicated to supporting Southern Lehigh Public Library's cause in any way that I can, and anticipate being able to possibly help out on a much smaller scale with the fundraising committee's work, just not the heavy workload and responsibility that comes with being Read Between the Wines chair. Thank you for your understanding and for the opportunities I've had as chair of the Read Between the Wines, and I look forward to seeing what the new chair will bring to the event.
Okay. Thank you for all you've done.
Thank you.
And I just made myself a note, we're gonna talk about committee assignments later on in the agenda, so why don't we just deal with that at that time. Okay, Vicki, you're up with facility maintenance.
Okay, so
Sounds like you gotta put fire alarm in there.
Yeah, no fire alarm, just the LED lights. And while this is out for bid, I would just ask that everybody keep the quotes confidential, especially with the light fixtures. I'm meeting with a contractor tomorrow at 11 a.m. We're meeting here, he's gonna go over the areas, and I gave him basically what we're looking at. I think it's 81 lights that need to be switched out to LED. So there was an increase, and that's on your cover sheet. I have the old quote from July of 21.